And I think for the first time since '94, the fans in New York, or maybe they'll be celebrating the Yankees win maybe in a couple of weeks, but I think for the first time in 30 years, you might see a Stanley Cup champion celebrated in New York.
Okay. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Ready, get ready, let's go. They can't stop you. No, they can't stop you. No, they can't stop you. They can't stop you. No, they can't stop you. Don't let them stop you. Back against the wall, beat.
And welcome to the SHAE Show, the first ever NHL coverage. And of course, I had to bring on a very special guest, Mr. Dennis Bernstein from Sirius XM Radio. Dennis, how are you doing on this day?
I'm doing great, SHAE. Great to talk hockey with you. The season just started, but happy to jump on the show and chat NHL.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. You know, I've been struggling to get a guest here, but I'm like, you know what? We got it.
Social media is a wonderful thing, SHAE. So are DMs. So when you reached out, I was happy to talk hockey with you. No problem at all.
Awesome. So we're just going to kick this episode off the way that we do every other episode, where I allow my special guests to introduce themselves, give everyone their background in sports, how their careers got started, things of that nature, and what led you to being where you are now.
Sure. Well, let's see. I'm currently senior writer for the Fourth Period. I'm one of the hosts on Sirius XM NHL Network Radio. We have our own show called The Hot Stove on Saturdays from 11 to 1 Eastern, but I also co-host on the main show, The Power Play. That's on 3 to 6 Eastern. I'll be on, I think, on November 1st or 2nd, doing an hour, and then co-hosting the show on the 2nd. Let's see, what else? I'm chair of the Professional Hockey Writers Association in Los Angeles, the chapter here, so I get to vote for the awards, the MVP, the Rookie of the Year, Lady Bing, the Selkie, so that's a great privilege to be including some of the history. And my background is not classical at all, with respect to a journalist. I have an undergraduate degree in accounting and a master's in finance. And about maybe 30 years ago, when I started all this, I was a boring accountant from New York City. I moved to LA. I became a headhunter. And at the same time, I was interviewing people during the day, and I was also interviewing people at night. So I became one of the best interviewers there probably is in Los Angeles. So that's my 30-second elevator pitch. It just goes to show that if you're passionate enough about sports and you want to, if you want hard enough. And look, I worked a full-time job for a long time too, so I know how tough the media industry is. So it was a great hobby for a while, but now it's my chosen profession. I'm happy to be among, I know the top guys in the business. So it's been a real privilege to do this since I think 1997.
Yeah, long time. And we know that careers like this sometimes doesn't last long. So the fact that you've been here for over nearly 30 years is a blessing. But you're doing what you love, and honestly, you're doing it extremely well. So flip the script here. You do some work on the LA Kings, who some people may be familiar with, some people may not be. So we're just gonna, before we get started on that though, we're going to flip the script back here to NHL season. It's now getting started. What are your thoughts overall so far on the season?
I think the biggest story, SHAE, is a negative one, and it's the Nashville Predators. Everybody remember, Steven Stamkos left Tampa Bay after a very long time. People thought he would end his career there. They went up not signing, went to Nashville, and then another big-time goal scorer, Jonathan Marchessault, who was part of the Vegas Golden Knights championship, also jumped into Nashville. So you think you add 80 goals to a lineup that struggled to score, and this team would start off great? Guess what? They're 0-5. They're the only team that hasn't gotten a point so far this season. And I didn't pick them to win the division because it's a very tough division, but I think everybody is shocked about that. A positive development, and a team that is in the same division as Nashville are the Winnipeg Jets. The Winnipeg Jets were a really good team last year, and they got to the playoffs, and Connor Hellebuyck, their goaltender, wasn't great for them, and they went up losing in the second round. But this team started the season 5-0. They've got a ton of offense. They're a really exciting team to watch. Not a lot of people know about them because they're in Winnipeg. Who watches Winnipeg games? So I think on the negative side, the Predators on the positive side, the Jets, and I just think it's been a great start to the season. A lot of young talent coming in. Macklin Celebrini, they got every well celebrated as the first overall pick. He's been hurt in San Jose, got basically hurt in the first game. But so far, so good. I think that I mentioned the two surprise teams, but it's such a long season, SHAE. It's Nashville's going to have a struggle when you start lose 5 in a row to make the playoffs. But it's such a long season. It's hard to get any trends right now. But those are a couple of things that have come to light at least early in the season in October.
Yeah. And, some teams have been doing well. Some teams have not. My Pittsburgh Penguins been up and down so far this year. I don't really know what to expect, but they did sign Sidney Crosby to an extension this offseason, where now he is able to possibly or most likely retire as a Pittsburgh Penguin. So what are your thoughts on that decision and keeping the big three of him, Malkin, and Letang together?
You have to. Well, the fans would ride, I guess. Fans like this stuff would ride. So you got to keep them together. The challenge is the rest of the team isn't very good. And the great thing about it is to see Sid retire as a Penguin, because that rarely happens in any sport, SHAE. Like, Emmett Smith going to the Cardinals. And, I could give you a whole list of players who played a long time with one team and to another team and really didn't do much. And it was really kind of a mistake. I remember it's the World Series, and I remember Willie Mays going to the Mets and struggling to catch fly balls in center field. So I think it's a great thing for the organization that Sid stayed, because you had another situation I just mentioned. Everybody thought Steven Stamkos would retire at Tampa Bay Lightning. He won 2 titles there, and they chose to go in a different direction. So that's great to see. But other than Sid, Gino, and Tanger, there's a lot of challenges on the team. They just don't have enough quality. And their goaltending, Tristan Jarry, he's now basically the backup after they signed him to an extension. It's a lot of work for Kyle Dubas. They have quality guys. They have 3 legendary Hall of Famers and a 4th in Erik Karlsson. But, SHAE, like I mentioned with Nashville, it's not a rotisserie league. You have to be able to get players that fit a system, can support. You can't have all just superstars. There's a hard salary cap in this sport. So it's going to be a struggle for the Penguins. And even to get in, SHAE, if you look at their history, since they won a cup, they stink in the playoffs. So even if you got in as a wild card, good luck. I just don't have any faith in Pittsburgh right now because, yes, they have, what they are, SHAE, they're a top-heavy team. Like I mentioned the talented guys they have, but the bottom of the lineup isn't what it needs to be a legitimate contender in the East. So if they get in the playoffs, I think it'll be a struggle. But like I mentioned at the top, it's great to see Sid, who will retire a Pittsburgh Penguin. He deserves to do that.
Yeah, and we flipped the script here. It was about last season or the season before that, where fellow podcast and sports personality Pat McAfee, who's a fellow Yinzer, blasted the Penguins when he said that, excuse me for my language, Sidney Crosby doesn't deserve this shit.
Yeah.
And I said when he said that, he spoke the mind of many who wants to see this dude retire on top. But the position that the Penguins has been putting them in over the years since the Stanley Cup title reign, back to back, it's not been a good one. And it's to the point where fans are now calling for Sullivan to be fired. Like, gone. So what are your thoughts on the fans wanting Sullivan gone? Do you think that this year should be a do or die for him, or do you think he has earned that right to a point his job should not be called for?
Well, he's won there, right? So that has in his favor. But remember, Kyle Dubas is the general manager and president of the team. He's not Mike Sullivan's guy. So the most convenient thing to do, the team doesn't play well through the first 25 or 30 games, is to fire the coach if you want to change. If it goes really south. If they're like 2 or 4 points out of a playoff spot halfway through the season, Mike Sullivan is going to get fired. Maybe the end of the season. But it depends how they perform. Is he on the hot seat? He's on the hot seat because if they don't perform, it's easy for Kyle Dubas to do it because, it's not my guy. And usually general managers get 1 or 2 bullets to shoot. Like with respect to a coach, they used to get the gas or turf. A couple of coaches. So could this be it for Sullivan? It could be, but they're not losing because of Sullivan. They're losing because Jim Rutherford, who's the GM for there, made a lot of trades, traded a lot of their future for present, and it didn't pay off over the last 7 years. Now, I'm a Rams fan, and I know what my GM did 3 years ago. He sold a farm to win a Super Bowl, and so I get that. I get being aggressive, but the aggressiveness that Jim Rutherford showed, Kyle Dubas is paying for the price for it right now. There's just not a lot of talent on that team. Remember, Jane Gunsel left, so how are you going to replace his scoring? It's a difficult road for Sullivan. I watch how the team plays. if they start getting their brains beat in, and it's 4-1 every night, and you don't see effort, and it looks like the coach put on you, and you're not doing well, then yeah, because as we know, in every sport, every coach has a shelf life. Like, I'm a big fan of Mike Sullivan. I think he's done a great job there, and I think a lot of it has to do with the guy that you just mentioned, Sidney Crosby. If Sid still likes the coach, then the coach ain't going nowhere. If he loses Sid, then he's probably gone. And that's a situation where, yes, you think the general manager has a lot of power, but Sid, as we know, a lifetime Penguin, he's going to have certainly input as well. You saw it. Look, we saw it in football with Aaron Rodgers. He can deny that he was responsible for Sal's firing, but when the owner goes to talk to you, and a couple of days later the coach is gone, and you say I had nothing to do with it, I'm not sure about that. So, does he deserve to be on the hot seat? No, SHAE. But this is Pittsburgh. They expect to win. They expect to be in the playoffs. So if they don't start the season well, yeah, there could be a change behind the bench for the Penguins.
Definitely. And it's the sad part about playing for the Steel City. It's a great city to play for. And it's to a point that you don't want the Penguins to turn into the Pirates, which is nearly impossible because of their success and the fact that they do find their ways to at least be in the conversation for a postseason. But at the same time, that's not the standard in the Steel City with any of their sports teams, especially with both the Steelers and the Penguins. It's championships or it's nothing because of the Hall of Fame players, because of the current talent around. But I'm looking at the Penguins right now, and it's real hard for me to put my faith in this organization right now with what they built around the big three. I had questions of Marcus, about Jerry since day one. He is, causing more question marks as it goes on because his defense level, his defense is just not there. It's just not there. I'm like, I understand I can't play better, but you are getting paid handsomely both on and off the field because of what's around you, along with your contract to play well, and you just don't, especially in the playoffs. Like, I don't know what happens with Jerry, but I just do not want him as my goalie if the Penguins was to make it there. I can't put faith in him, and I hate that I have to say that right now, but it's just question marks. Big game after big game after big game.
Yeah. Well, with respect to Jerry, I remember bringing Pittsburgh people on a radio show a couple of years ago, and people said, okay, like nobody thought he would come back. Like when he saw that deal, that long-term deal, everybody was shocked, to be honest with you. I was too. I think, okay, it didn't work in Pittsburgh. He, played well for a while. The tail end didn't end well. He's going to go on his way. And now in a situation where you got Joel Blomqvist basically as the number one, it's tough. But again, like they don't have a middle six that's dangerous. They're bottom pair defense. There's a lot of holes on this team, and they haven't been able to replenish it because they traded a lot of the prospects and picks for established players who thought they could win a cup. So I think it always revolves around Sid, and I just think there's not enough talent to surround it. So you can blame the coach here, but I'm saying, okay, it's the predecessor GM and his mentality towards it. Now, Kyle Dubas is different. Like, he may hold on to his draft picks. He may actually trade players for futures, right? That's not the case in Pittsburgh, but I get it. The one thing that kind of stays in favor, and you mentioned the marketplace, SHAE, like, look how long Tomlin's coached in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of patience in Pittsburgh with respect to the fans in the market. So the only thing that kind of weighs well with respect to Sullivan's future, that he might buy some time because he's won a championship there, and it seems to be there's more patience in that market than in New York or Los Angeles with respect to pressure to win. At some point, you do have to win. And, here's the thing, SHAE. Sid didn't sign on just to get the pay. Like, he's not going to just go through the motions. He's not going to break Gretzky's record by like Ovechkin is. So he signed on to be competitive and still to win and wants to win. So at some point in time, there might be some internal pressure from him to go to ownership and say, look, here's the deal. Like, when are we going to get better? So it's going to be a very interesting season. If they don't do something significant, SHAE, this season, then I think in the offseason, you're going to see a lot of changes for the Penguins.
Yeah, agree. And I think they're well-needed changes because things, according to the standard, things have not been.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Absolutely.
It's like you either go one and done, basically, or you don't make the playoffs. And that's just with those three, those big three still playing well. Like, I'm not going to say or say, well, Crosby is definitely playing at a high level. I don't think
he's been fantastic.
He doesn't, I don't think he's aging like fine wine, in my
He's
opinion.
playing like he's 27, not 37.
Right.
He's that good, Shea. He's the GOAT in Pittsburgh. He's one of the all-timers. Might be a top 5 player in this league. He's just, that maybe the statistics aren't like Ovechkin or Gretzky was, or any of the top scorers, but this guy's the GOAT, and he's playing as good. And because it's a preparation, Shea, and he stays in shape, he doesn't take really much time off in the off season. So the preparation to staying in shape, you see the benefits of him at 37 years old, still being able to crush it.
Yeah, and I love that about him. And then you have Letang who still get things done. You still
Mm-hmm.
have Malkin who's still pretty solid. But then I'm looking at everything else and I'm like, you know what? This is the reason why I say it might be time for a rebuild because
Mm-hmm.
it seems like nothing is working well consistently outside of them three. And that's problematic. Like that to me is just recipe for disaster. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just a disaster
Yeah.
in the making, and it's devastating to see because I don't want to see either one of them go out like that. But it seems like we're dealing with an organization who does.
Mm-hmm. It's tough because you can't trade those players either. Like, what the fan action would be if they traded Tanger or Gino? I think you're past that point as well. But Shea, here's the thing: it's not the NBA, right? It's not like, oh, you can put together even the NBA. Remember when the Nets put those 3 guys together? What happened? Not much, no
Disaster.
championship. So, yeah, right. So it's not just about that. Jay. It's difficult to win in this league. You need depth. You need a third line that can score. You need a third pair that won't give up goals. You need reliable goaltending. You mentioned a goaltending. I think it's a matter of trust. Can you trust this goaltender now, Tristan Jarry? I don't think you can at this point. But goalies are like pitchers, Jay. Sometimes they get hot, sometimes they get cold. He's cold right now. He has done in the past, but for fans not to have faith in him right now based on his performance of last season and start the season, they have every right to. He's underachieving.
Yeah, and we speaking on the season, and we speak on the Penguins. So, what would you say if the Penguins does have kryptonites outside of the New York Rangers, of course? Who else would you say would be a real tough team for this team that we have right now to beat?
In the division, the Devils, because the Devils last year, the Devils were really banged up. They got hurt. Dougie Hamlet got hurt in November. Jack Hughes was out for a while. Nico Hischier was out for a while. The general manager was very slow to trade for a goaltender. He knew he needed a goaltender in November. Didn't trade till March when he got Jake Allen. So he waited on that. But this team, they're fully healthy now. They're going to contend with the Rangers. So right now, the way I look at the Metro Division, the Penguins are in, it's the Rangers and Devils. And then you can pick your teams. Maybe Pittsburgh can get to the 3 seed. Maybe I think Carolina's regressed because they lost 2 guys on defense. They didn't sign Jane Gensel. So I think clear cut right now in the early days of the season, Pittsburgh and New Jersey and the Rangers are the top dogs in the Metro. And then your choice with respect to who you might think might come in third or possibilities for the wildcards. But like those 2 teams, the depth's there, the goaltending's there, the defense there. They have elite goal scorers. I think rightfully so the Rangers and Devils are the top of the division right now.
Yeah, I gotta agree because not only are they, to me, some of the biggest teams, but they're some of the toughest teams on
Yep.
both sides of of the
Mhm.
brink. And when
Exactly.
you have a team that is so young and so effective, it's hard to beat that team, especially when you got guys that even though they're playing at a high level, they're
Yeah.
aging. But
Mhm.
then you got, you guys around them that like we already established who just
Mhm.
don't play well or don't play
Yeah.
well consistently. Then you have goalies that are that
Mhm.
are questionable. So when you have that and then you take on, young teams like the Devils, young teams like the Rangers, and then you look
Mhm.
outside your division, that can be a disaster right there. And I don't
Yeah.
even want to
Yeah.
imagine this team without the 3 that we have.
Oh no, but then they're an AHL team, so that's expect. I think at best case they're a wild card team because just like I mentioned, the depth isn't there, and you can't trust the goaltending right now. Now, does that change in season? Maybe. I don't think you can trade Jari at this point in time. So when we get to the trade deadline in March, maybe there's another move they can make. But it's going to be very, very interesting. I think this is really. I think Carl Dubas has to wait and see how this group of players performs. And like I mentioned, if it goes south, or let's say they make the playoffs, get knocked out in 5, then there's going to be drastic changes. Not the core 3. I'm not suggesting you trade Gino or Tanger or Sid, but you're going to have to do something else with the mix of this. That maybe you go in free agency, maybe trade some futures or that. But there's a lot of work to do because this team is on. And you mentioned the age. These guys aren't getting any younger. They're in their late 30s. It's going to be difficult. And Tanger's had his health issues as well. It's a tipping point for Pittsburgh. This is the season that tips because look, they only missed by a couple points last year, so they were close. but they still might regress. And there's further regression because there are teams like Ottawa coming up. And if they make, I don't think making the playoffs is negotiable for this team. I think there's a lot of disappointment, a lot of anger if they do wind up missing the playoffs.
Yeah, and when you have the standard you have in Pittsburgh, with this team, it's hard to meet that standard. It really
Agreed.
is. But
Yep.
I just wish my Penguins the best of luck. I'm looking to get out there to a game or two this season. I haven't yet. Been busy around here with the Steelers,
Good.
WNBA, all of that stuff.
That's good. That's good. That's good. The season's just starting, Shay. We're going until June, so you got plenty of time.
Fingers crossed. But flipping the script here onto the season. So now that the season's here, we got upcoming teams, we got teams regressing. So what will be your message to the fans as to what to expect for the NHL season as 2024 is now here?
Well, unlike baseball, when like the three best teams, like by payroll, or were in the finals with respect to the Mets, Dodgers, and Yankees, like there's probably 8 or 10 teams you could legitimately make a case for winning the cup. Florida, I thought Florida would have a hangover to start the season. They lost a couple of players, solid players like Tarasenko and Montour, but they're 2-1 out of the box. There are a lot of teams that can win, Shay. Like Toronto, I know every year they choke in the playoffs, but they're a really good team. They're teams in the West. Like I think the Rangers will win it all. Dallas is great. Edmonton hasn't started well, but they were 1 goal away from winning a Stanley Cup last year. There's a lot of good teams, Shay. Like if you're top 3 in any of these divisions, you could probably make the case to win the cup, except for maybe 3rd place in the Metro. I can tell you, I can point to maybe 8 or 10 teams that have a legit shot, which is what you want to see. And the great thing about the playoffs is 16 teams make it, 16 don't make it. But you're probably going to have probably 20 teams out of 32 playing like games of consequence late in the season. Like there's a lot of parity in this league. There's a lot of talent. Man, I remember this league in the 80s. These kids nowadays, you watch this. Don't even go to a game. Go to practice and watch these kids do their skills drills. And I was talking to Darrell Evans, who played in this league for 5 or 6 years, and I think scored 25, 30 goals in this league. He's in amazement about how much skill these kids have. So watch the game, watch the skill, watch the speed, watch the strength. The league is in a great place, Shay, right now. So that's why I know some people roll their eyes about NHL expansion, but all 32 owners are in really solid shape financially. There's interest from Atlanta, from Houston, from Quebec City. There's still billionaires wanting to buy teams. So we're going to see expansion probably to 36 teams in the next 5 to 7 years. So I think my notice to the fans was anything that you turn on a game, even tonight there's 1 game, but it's the Leafs and the Lightning. You're going to see skill, you're going to see speed, and I think this game has been more entertaining than it's ever been, which really bodes well. So if you want to, look, here's the thing. When you start the season and you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan or Kansas City Royal fan, even they had a great season, you're not winning, right? You're not winning. But in this league, like the Florida Panthers 5 or 6 years ago, you couldn't give away tickets. They drew 6,000 people, and now they're champions and they sell out their building. So there is hope that you can quickly move from pretender to contender. So I think that's the one thing is that this great parity in this league, and there's been more skill than there's ever been in this league, which is a great thing to see. And I think that's why the ratings are so up. And I think that's why TNT, TBS, and ESPN are so happy with the deals they struck with the NHL with respect to TV rights.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know the season just got started, but I honestly can't wait to the playoffs. Like, just bring it on. Bring it on.
I know. When I drive to the arena and the Kings are playing the Blue Jackets on a Tuesday night in December before Christmas, yeah, it's a struggle. But it comes fast. It does. And like I said, the parity, I know you want the playoffs which start in April, but the playoffs really start after the first of the year because there's teams that may be 6 to 8 points out of a game, and they're already important games. They're playing like game 45 out of 82, and it's already an important game. Like, we can't lose another one. That's be 4 losses in a row. So I think that some of these teams that are on the outside, like Nashville's going to have a big rally to get in playoff position. So by the time they get to January, February, this team that everybody thought would do really, really well, they might be struggling to get in the playoffs. So they may be in playoff mode earlier than some of these other teams like a Boston or a Toronto or a Rangers or a Dallas. That actually might help them, because the one thing you saw it like a little bit in the playoffs, baseball, when these teams get time off, it's not the greatest thing. So when you're playing like important games, like almost playoff games, and you're only in March and you got 20 more games a season, it kind of sharpens you for the playoffs. So I think that's one thing. So I know we want the playoffs, but I'm telling you, by the time we get to March, they're going to be playoff-like intensity in a lot of these games because these teams are going to be, 1 or 2 points out of a playoff spot, or they're trying to hold on to a playoff spot. and it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and when we look at and we look at the LA Kings, so before we get more into the playoffs, we're gonna flip the script here to the LA Kings. What would you say would be fair expectations for this team heading into the remainder of 2024?
Well, if they don't win a playoff round, then it's a failure because they haven't won a playoff round since they won the Stanley Cup 10 years ago. They've been in the playoffs 3 years in a row, and they've lost every time in the first round to the Edmonton Oilers. I get it. It's hard to make the playoffs. Like, if they make the playoffs this year, I think it's only 6 or 7 of 24 teams that will make the playoffs 4 years in a row. But when you have a situation where a decade ago they won 2 championships, the fans are waiting for their third banner, and it hasn't been. So you talk about pressure. I think there's pressure on Rob Blake, the general manager, because this is his 8th season, and to not win a playoff round, he's actually lost, I think, 4 rounds of playoffs in 8 seasons. If it's a 5th round and they don't make the playoffs, it's going to be challenging. But it depends. Drew Doughty's out until December, which is a huge loss for them. Pride's offense is a lead in the room. He's one of the OGs in LA when it comes to hockey, so they're going to miss him a lot. Can they kind of tread water until December, late December, first of the year if he comes back? So I think the expectation, I think on paper, once he's healthy, they're better than they were last year. But if they run into Edmonton again in the first round, they lose a fourth time in a row in the playoffs, that's going to be challenging. So I think success is winning a playoff round. And real success would be getting deep, like winning 2 rounds, getting to a conference final. Not sure this team's here yet because there's question marks on defense. Not sure about the goaltending. I think their offense is a little bit better than last season. So I think for them, I think it starts with winning a playoff round, something that hasn't happened in a decade here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and city of Los Angeles is another city of champions. Because you got the Rams now, you have the Lakers right there, but at least the Clippers. We just gonna leave them on the outside.
No. They have a nice arena though. That's good.
They do.
That's about it. And there's a team up of a couple of miles north playing for a World Series too. So here's the thing, Shay. There's a lot of entertainment choices in LA. It's not like Pittsburgh where there's 2 or 3 teams. Like there's probably 7 teams you can watch, and there's probably 10 other things you could do at night. So it's incumbent upon these teams to play well and be entertaining and win games. That's how you draw people to the arena. Look, it's a really solid fan base here in Los Angeles, but it helps. That'll get you 14, 15,000 in the building. If you're a winning team, that fills the extra 3,000 seats. It becomes a hot ticket, so it's going to be interesting to see. But I think it'd be a little bit more entertaining team. They weren't good 3 or 4 years ago when Todd McClellan coached, so he put in this really passive defensive system where they basically lay back. Not the most exciting thing in the world to watch. And so as they got better, it helped them play defense. But now that they're a better team and have more skilled players, they've kind of gotten away with that with new coach Jim Hiller. So I think you'll see more upbeat, more entertaining brand of hockey in Los Angeles. But there's pressure on the organization to finally win a playoff round after so long without winning one.
Yeah, and we speak on LA, Lakers, Dodgers. You can throw the Sparks in there if you watch.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, yeah.
And then you have the Kings. So it's like LA. It's a city of champions. But like you said, 10, 15 other things to do. So it's like so this is how I look at it. When a team or a fan base comes and watch you, that means they really care to see you. So they want to see, they want to see you do well. And when you don't, that's when they start to grill you because they I really could have been doing X, Y, and Z instead. I'm sitting here.
Fire the coach, fire the GM, trade this player. Why'd you sign that player? Yeah, the expectation should be there because you can mention this makes these people's weeks. I get it. Fans come out, they had a tough week. They want to get all their frustrations out and watching a game. And the team isn't entertaining. When they lose 5-1, you feel worse when you leave the arena. You don't want that. It's a great release and it's a great game. Look, I covered this game. I've covered it for a long time. I love the players. I love the people around it. So I get it. But yeah, it's. Fans have a right to say what they want. And some are experts at some stuff, and some are, I use the word donkeys, Shay. So some of them just want to talk to express an opinion. But it's important because it's a competitive landscape when it comes to sports and entertainment in Los Angeles, for sure.
Yep. And you know what? We definitely going to be watching more of the Kings this year because I want to see what they're going to do with this young team. I want to see if they're going to be able to take it a step, forward, or they're going to move backwards. And it will be real shocking for me to watch the Stanley Cup this upcoming season and not see them in part of that. That would be shocking, at least not be in the conversation.
Yeah.
But flip the script here a little bit. There are at least 8 teams per conference.
Right.
to make the NHL, playoffs and compete for
Right.
the Stanley Cup. So as of
Mhm.
right now, or at the end of the year, who do you think is your best 8 teams to make it per conference? Who do you see being and qualifying for the Stanley Cup this upcoming season?
Well, I'll give you my division winners, and one's a really bad pick so far because it's the Colorado Avalanche, who can't seem to get a save from Georgiev. So I picked the Leafs, the Rangers, the Avalanche, and the Oilers to win the division. Leafs in the Atlantic, uh, the Devils in the Rangers in the Metro, Central Division Colorado, and the Pacific Oilers. So those 4 teams. Florida will be in. Toronto will be in. Boston will be in. Tampa. Let's see. Devils and Rangers. That's how many? 5 in the West. I think. Well, Carolina should get back in, but I don't think they're a threat. So that's 6. And the wildcard teams: the Islanders, and I'll say the Red Wings. So that's the East. The West. I'll tell you the sleeper team right now, and that they've started really well. And I was up for their opening game ever in their new arena. Is Utah. Utah's 4-1-1 in their first 6. Now there's a lot of heavyweights in the division, SHAE. You've got Nashville, and you talked about. You got Dallas. You got Winnipeg. Like, it's a really, really tough division. So I think the playoff teams are Winnipeg, Dallas, Nashville, Utah, and in the West I got Calgary. No, not Calgary. Calgary's a great start, but they're gonna fade. So L.A., Edmonton, as I mentioned, Vegas, and Vancouver. So 4 teams from the Central, 4 teams from the Pacific, and like I mentioned, to win it all, I've got Dallas coming out of the West, and I have the Rangers coming out of the East. And I think for the first time since '94, and the fans in New York, or maybe they'll be celebrating a Yankees win maybe in a couple of weeks, but I think for the first time in 30 years, we might see a Stanley Cup champion celebrated in New York.
Yeah, and it's gonna suck to see as a Penguins fan, but
Yeah, it will be for sure.
but I'm like, you know what? A good team is a good team, and the Rangers are a pretty good
And they've
team.
been close. They went to the conference finals 2 out of the last 3 years and just couldn't get over the big players didn't play in big spots. Like, they couldn't have Panarin and Zibanejad deliver in the postseason, and that's why they were outside looking in. They were just as good as the Panthers, but the Panthers more clutch. And that's the one thing about the Rangers. They're going to be one of the top teams in the league. Can they win in the playoffs? Can their big guys in big spots, when you're down to the Final Four and every inch of ice is hard to compete for, can these guys find a way to break through and score goals and get to a Stanley Cup final that they haven't been able to achieve?
Yep. So, that's just the thing. And you know what? You just already answered my question for the division
Okay.
base. So before I let you go, is there anything more we should expect for your NHL radio show, as you do the NHL network radio on Sirius XM? What
Yeah.
should we expect coming up for this season along with your podcast?
Well, we're we're the cool kids on the station. So we're more like Sports Pay is more like a lifestyle brand. Like, well, after games we gotta have a good time. We travel around North America and stuff like that. So I think that for us, it's like we inject a little bit of humor. It's not as serious talk as some of maybe the other shows on Sirius XM, which is great. We'll come on. And one of our hosts, Ryan Paint, is a huge 49ers fan. So the first show of the season, I had an AI voice of Taylor Swift. Tell him it's okay, Ryan. Sorry about this 49ers in the playoffs and stuff like that. So we joke around. My hosts are Canadian, so we talk about baseball and how bad the Blue Jays are and stuff like that. So we tend to be there's a lot of hockey talk, and we have guests from all over the NHL. But I think the chemistry that we built over the last 6 years on a Hot Stove show on Saturdays is a lot of fun. We make it fun. So if you're tuning in on Saturday morning, you want to listen to get some news and breaking news and some fun and entertaining talk. That's what we kind of provide for the network.
Yep. And you know what? I just recently subscribed to the network before I actually had you on the show. I did, because I'm like, you know what? I need to hear more podcasts that cover the NHL, which is what motivated me to bring you up here on the show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You wanted them.
Happy to do. Yeah.
So if you guys are not, please have your Sirius XM, as the NHL Network Radio would be there with this man, Dennis Bernstein. Dennis, that's all we have for you right now. Once
Great. No
again,
question.
thank you for joining. If you guys have not already, please give him a follow on X at Dennis TFP, as he will be continuing to give you more coverage on your fellow LA Kings, along with more of the NHL. Dennis, thank you for once again joining. This has been the SHAE Max Show, and we're out.
Get ready, let's go! They can't stop you. No, they can't stop you. No, they can't stop you. They can't stop you.